I just was warned not to throw it at the camera guy. All right, so without further ado, let me bring up Rachel Beisel from CableLabs and Brian Dietz, and we'll get right into this discussion about how did we get here. We should have had walk-on music for you. You can dance on.
Where's the walk-up music?
All right. So, you two have logged a lot of energy on the focus of this session, 10G. That I framed a trivia question around the G of 10G. Kind of begs the question: why did you pick this brand, and what did your testing show? And I got to tell you, it kind of reminds me of. Do you remember when HD TV first came out, and Mark Cuban was like, he had a choice between 720p and 1080i, and he picked 1080i, and somebody said, why did you pick 1080i? And he said, because it's a bigger number. So,
yep.
Start with you, Rachel.
It's a double entendre. Does everyone know, did you do the G question?
Yes.
And somebody got it right with gigabits? Okay, perfect. Oh, was it Curtis?
Of course he did.
Okay.
He works for CableLabs, disqualified.
No. Yeah, so it is a double entendre with G and generation. A lot of consumers, if you look at the end user experience, they understand that. Brian, I know, has a lot of information on the testing that we did leading into that, but it is gigabits. So that's the forward-facing vision that we want to get to.
And I would just say part of what we wanted to do intentionally was to introduce questions about what's the difference between the Gs. We knew that the wireless industry has done literally millions, if not billions of dollars of marketing about 5G, and they've done a great job of getting that name out there. And so we wanted to assert our industry's vision for the technology of the future, a pathway that the companies were already on, the CableLabs was already on. And so we thought 10G provided really a perfect opportunity to introduce ourselves into that conversation and get people to ask, what does your G stand for? And so it stands for gigabit to the home, and obviously 10 gigabits to the home. So it was really a way for us to insert ourselves into a conversation that was already happening and really be more forceful about our industry's vision.
And so what was it like to go to the big 5G conference, AKA the Consumer Electronics Show this year, and nonchalantly drop 10G into the mix?
There was a lot of planning leading into that. So
this is it right here.
Yeah, and you'll get to hear, I think, a clip from this. But Brian and I got to spend a lot of quality time together for about almost the year leading up to it.
Hashtag cozy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we started that, and about May is how it actually came to be from one of our board meetings, and talking about a forward-facing industry vision around that. And so we spent a lot of time around that, a lot of testing, a lot of work leading into CES. So what you saw when it was beautifully laid out was a little bit of work and chaos behind the scenes, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we knew that the conversation at CES was going to be a lot about 5G. So there was mixed feelings. Are we taking too big a risk by introducing 10G into that? And we thought, well, why not stick our toe in the water and see if we can establish our 10G while everyone's talking about 5G? And we had pretty great success, and I think there's a clip right now of how it was introduced.
Our industry is ready to start talking about the next great leap in broadband. We are calling our initiative simply 10G. And no, folks, we didn't pick the name just because it's twice as much G as 5G.
That's true.
We chose it because it succinctly declares our concerted drive to deliver 10 gigabit speeds to consumers in the United States and around the world. Combined with 5G wireless and next-gen Wi-Fi, 10G will ensure consumers have access to the most sophisticated infrastructure possible in order to take full advantage of whatever the future brings.
So how did that go over? What was the reaction?
Well, we had probably more than 100 pieces of press mentions. That there's a few here. I think it went over, it beat our expectations of what that would be. I think it did actually help that 5G was also positioned with the message. It was friend, not foe, not against. So I think that actually helped a lot.
And I would just say, Rachel mentioned before that we had done research prior to launching 10G, and really what the research showed us is people are very interested and focused on speed. And like you said, with the HD the branding of HDTV, it was all about what's the biggest number you can get. I mean, consumers, when they think of broadband, they think of fast, speed. Gigabit obviously is starting to take hold with people. And so, by introducing 10G, just kind of brought a level of interest and excitement from the media. The headlines, which you saw, were great, and like Rachel said, better than we expected. And really, it's been a place for us to set up the conversation from there.
And not just speed, but also latency, reliability,
Right,
as well
security.
as enhanced security too.
So now this from the Department of then what happened. After that, the next big thing was you took 10G to E3, which is where all the gaming enthusiasts hang out, they're on the hunt for the low ping advantage. What was their reaction?
So before we hit E3, we actually did a few other things as well, which are highlighted on the screen here. In DC, we had a reception on the Hill where we had a couple of dozen members of Congress come, and we got to talk to them about 10G. We've decorated our office with lots of 10G things. There's 10G swag that we've created, and so we've tried, and we also have been running a paid media campaign focusing on policymakers, because at NCTA, our big vision is making sure the industry has the pathway forward to launching, whether it's 10G or other kinds of innovative services. So that's some of the things that we've been focusing on. One of our member companies, Comcast, for their part, also had a discussion about 10G and the future of the network at South by Southwest at their experience. So that was another great way to introduce the brand to that audience. But as you said, part of our work around 10G is trying to determine what other verticals and how people will benefit from 10G. And one of the things that became clear to us very quickly, because the technologists told us this, is gaming. It's huge for gaming, latency, the ability to shove tons of data down the pipe, and symmetrical, and also the fact that there is no lag when you accomplish 10G. So we had the opportunity to meet with ESA, which is the organization that organizes E3, which is the gaming convention. We met with them in May of this year, and by June 10th, we had a booth set up and all ready to go at E3. And so it was a pretty quick experience, but it was a pretty good one. And I'm not sure how many people in the audience have been to E3. It's very unique. It's very different than this. And we have a quick sizzle reel that shows you kind of what some of the activity is.
And as you look at it, So as you can see, this is a very high energy, highly produced show. The booths at some of the different gaming companies put on cost over $1 million, I'm sure. And so it's very much like a Hollywood production at E3. And one of the great things is when we met with ESA, the organization that sponsors it, they were very interested in 10G because they heard about latency. And as soon as we told them that, they were like all over it and said, we want to partner with you, get you to come to E3. So we ended up sponsoring this space here called the 10G Gaming Lifestyle Pavilion, where we had obviously a lot of 10G branding. We had a place for people to sit and come and talk about 10G. We had a mural design, which was awesome. And really was an opportunity for us just to introduce 10G to the gaming community. And so now we have a special report, a field report from Brian on the top 10 things that he learned at E3 this year.
We do. I don't know if we have a drum roll. We do have the top 10 things I learned at E3 this year.
So hit it.
So the first thing we learned is that gamers put the fan in fanatics. So these people are not just, this is not their hobby, this is their lifestyle, this is their passion. So they, like about 70,000 gamers show up. They wait in line for hours to come to a Nintendo booth or come and play some of these games. So once you see, once you get there early in the morning before they let the fans in, there's people queued up in lines that are, you know, several thousand people long, and they're literally running in. So if you can see right here, this is
Just like coming into the SCTE.
So we thought all these people were running to the 10G booth, but they were actually going to a slightly different booth, which maybe had a little bit more excitement than 10G.
I start with an N and end in Nintendo.
It starts with an N, and you can see the guy circled right there. So there's
Mario.
I think you would call him Mario. I think you would, I don't know if you would call him a fanboy or whatever that proper term is, but you can see this is the Nintendo booth. We fortunately were pretty close to this, so we were able to get a lot of spillover traffic to the 10G area from that. So that's certainly one thing we learned about gamers is this is their passion, this is their thing. Nothing else comes before that. Some other things we learned really quickly are, once we hit to the next slide, that gamers will talk to anyone for a free t-shirt. We have t-shirts over here that we're giving away as well, but t-shirts are very popular, and you know, there was a lot of people who were interested in having a conversation about 10G and getting the t-shirt. The other thing that we know about gamers is they're also very tech savvy. So some people knew what DOCSIS was when we talked to them. We said,
This is my favorite.
So we said, we said, what's 10G? And they said, well, I don't know what that is. And we said, well, we represent the cable industry. And they said, oh, that's DOCSIS. We said, yes, but we're trying to call it 10G. So, and this is the next version of DOCSIS, it's not the current version.
Yes.
So there was some recognition of that, which was pretty interesting. We also learned, just like at CES, 5G was a thing at E3 as well. And Verizon had a 5G booth that was fairly close to ours. Of course, ours dwarfed them because 10G is so much bigger than 5G, but that was also another easy way for us to open up the conversation between 5G and 10G.
Can I ask you a question before it flies out of my head?
Sure.
What is the difference between 10G and DOCSIS 4.0?
So 10G is, DOCSIS 4.0 is one of the technologies that makes up the 10G toolbox.
Okay.
Rachel can probably elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, there's several technologies that make up 10G. So if you think about it, operators have different requirements of their networks, different customers. We needed something that was going to work that also would scale because it's not just a US-centric brand either. This is a global brand, and we wanted to make sure that of the technologies that we had, number one, is it real? We want to make this real. The other piece of this is that it needs to also work with the different operators that we have as well too. So long story long, DOCSIS 4.0 is one of the technologies among many.
Okay.
We also think 10G sounds a little bit better than DOCSIS 4.0, but...
Yeah, DOCSIS is doesn't roll off the tongue.
You've noticed that? You've heard that? Yeah.
So just a couple of quick more things from E3
Sorry, keep
is
going,
that a lot of people thought it was a fiber-only service, and we quickly dissuaded them of that it can come over the existing network, and that by upgrading it, it can deliver the 10 gigabit low latency reliability, all of the things that we're talking about. In addition, people did want to know about convergence. Is this a wireless and a wired service? And we said this is primarily a wired service, but as Rachel said earlier, it has to work in conjunction with 5G to be that perfect kind of seamless experience for consumers. Again, speed was the number one selling point, but once they heard about symmetrical scale and latency, that really blew them away. A lot of people walking around E3 and who are in the gaming community are also in the streaming community. So they want to send a bunch of data up the pipe as well. And so the idea that they could stream literally...
And when you say stream, you mean streaming themselves playing, right? Like they...
So people streaming themselves playing, but also it was kind of ironic, just at E3 you would see people walking around like this, and I was like, what are they doing? They were streaming, walking around E3 to their community.
Like they want to be their own network.
This is their lifestyle, is they stream and then they watch things like Twitch to watch other gamers game via the streaming service. So again, we talked about low latency a little bit, and I know there's a panel coming up a little bit later about low latency. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, it's definitely stick around. So I believe that's at 2 that we're going to have a panel here. So it'll be the third one.
At 1:30.
1:30 here. So
Part 3.
Yep, and you definitely don't want to miss that because I'm not going to talk about low latency to you. I'm going to let the panelists do that. But that's going to be Shaw. It's also going to be CableLabs distinguished technologist Jennifer. We also have Cisco and John Chapman. And we have Sercom as well, who's going to be on that panel, and they're going to be talking comprehensively about low latency XHAL.
So let's get back to your excellent E3 coverage. Thank you for that. So clearly, latency is a design goal that attracts the kinds of developers who attend E3. What happens beyond that? Like what other, I've been asking this for years, what else can we do with low latency besides shoot the other person faster? Sorry, but like what are the other verticals that benefit from a super low connection, and how low of a latency are we talking about? Like I've heard people say 20 milliseconds, 5 milliseconds, 1 millisecond, less than a millisecond. What are you aiming for, and what other verticals can benefit from that kind of network performance?
Yeah, less than 2 milliseconds.
Okay.
But what we're looking, I mean, what blows my mind just from gaming, well, number one, this stat that more people watch video gaming content than they do HBO, Netflix, ESPN, and Hulu combined. So
that's crazy.
That is wild. I never would have imagined
feel old
that. I know.
And out of touch.
Maybe you don't identify as a gamer. I didn't identify as a gamer until I actually started doing Zwift. So if you're familiar, if you're a cyclist, that's actually gamified health. So there's a lot of things that are happening from
Peloton qualify?
Peloton, I would also say qualifies for that as well too. So yeah, I'm a purist and have a bicycle that has a power meter, but that's something that is really fascinating. I think we've exhausted or heard a lot of the terms around telehealth, autonomous driving. You've heard a lot of those things, but we also, I mean, there's more devices now that are coming out on market that you've heard Amazon that's releasing new earbuds. So it's happening, and it's happening quickly.
And Brian, you had mentioned on one of our calls precision agriculture.
Yes.
Which made me wonder, what needs precision in agriculture?
That's something we're looking into, so I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, all right.
But it sounds good, right?
Yeah, right. Healthcare. Well, and I mean, anytime you've been somewhere and you're using this for your map and the connection gets goofed up, that's when you realize how much you appreciate not just connection, but low latency, I think. Okay, so let's talk about timing. How do you answer, you the 10G ambassadors, how do you answer the when can I have it and how much does it cost question that you were asked in LA or wherever that E3 conference was?
Sure, well, when we made the announcement at CES in January, we talked about this is a multi-year path to get to the full 10G service, but CableLabs has spec development and lab work underway. I think there was an announcement earlier this week or late last week about the DOCSIS 4.0 spec. And then operators have said field trials would begin in 2020, and every indication we have is that that's on track. And then, depending on the field trials, then the service could roll out 18 to 24 months after that. So it is a few-year pathway, but just kind of like our communications activity, we're building up to getting to the ultimate 10G, and then it'll be mission accomplished.
And if you want to play a part of that, definitely go to CableLabs right now, because if you could visit CableLabs.com, we have working groups that are already working on these technologies. We also have, beyond working groups, we have some interops that are coming up to where you can test your equipment. And it looks like the
people are really excited about 10G.
They're very excited about 10G. These are the people who are actually going to be building applications. If you've seen the first robotics kids over here, they're the ones who are going to be leveraging 10G and building ways in which we're going to be able to leverage it.
So I was reminded by this machine that we jumped ahead. We didn't get through your top 10, so let's...
Oh, that's okay. The other top takeaways were esports could be a big use case for 10G. Some of cable companies, Cox and Comcast, sponsor esports team. Mm-hmm. At E3, we did have the Atlanta Reign, which was based in Los Angeles last summer. They came to E3 and did a conversation and a t-shirt signing and a kind of a fan experience at E3, and it was really great. The people just love them, and they recognized, Gator and people with these, nicknames. So it was really great, and I think I don't recall what number 10 was, other than, and we don't have to go back, but it was it was a great experience. And like I said at the outset, we did bring 5,000 T-shirts to E3. We brought a few back, and so we do have T-shirts over here that we want to give out to attendees at SCTE afterwards as well.
Okay, so Rachel, talk to us next about the near future technology video. You brought a little bit of Phil to the stage. Tell us about that.
So if you're not familiar, and I think you saw if you were in the general session, that there are vision videos that CableLabs puts out every year. So we've had live, learn, play, and now this year's video is work. So if you go to cablelabs.com/near future, you can watch the video in its entirety. We had 30 minutes here. So we just brought a 3-minute clip that talks about what are some of the technologies that will actually be able to, that will leverage 10G. So I had mentioned like the earbuds, where things we talked about even looking at a device. I mean, it could be 10 years, it could be much sooner that we aren't going to be looking at a device to be able to walk around and experience everything, not through a device, but everywhere. It's ubiquitous. So there's a few technologies that you'll be able to see here in this video that will have Phil explaining behind the tech and what is it actually that we will be able to experience with 10G.
I'm Phil McKinney. I'm the CEO here at CableLabs, and I want to introduce you to the technologies of the near future. In the near future, smart mixed reality technologies will allow us to have access to information that we've never had before. It'll give us that information without the need to pull devices out of our pockets. That information will just naturally appear when it is appropriate. And those technologies will be part of everything we have with us, including the eyeglasses we wear. Public displays in the future will allow you to come together with your friends, families, and co-workers and interact and share, while also being able to have private conversations and private information through security that's enabled through light field displays. Next generation ride sharing will be built around autonomous fleets of taxis. These kinds of vehicles will allow you to just jump in and engage those services once you've signed up without any other steps required. The availability of these kinds of transportations will transform communities and transforms the services that people can take advantage of without the requirement of owning their own vehicle. Team collaborations are going to go through a massive transformation. These transformations include bringing all of these technologies together, whether that be holoroom holodecks, light field displays, and even traditional video technologies that we're familiar with. These collaboration technologies are going to allow teams to ramp up their ability to be more productive, more supportive, and deliver better ideas. Holographic telepresence will take advantage of a wide range of technologies, including light field displays, light field rooms, and even volumetric light field tables. Through these technologies, team members, no matter where they live in the world, will be able to come together to work and solve problems and be more productive. Become just part of the norm. In technology such as eye gaze, our ability to convey context, action, and meaning just through the simple gaze of our eyes will allow us to then interact with technologies in ways we just never thought were possible. AI will always be with us. It'll be constantly listening for context, such that it can support us, interact, and take on tasks without us having to be explicit in what we needed to do. And through these advances of AI technology, it truly becomes assistive to the work we're doing day in and day out. With the growing use of light fields, we will see the price on those displays come way down. That opens up a whole variety of possible uses, including high school chemistry classes for use in experiments, even in museums to allow for the display of information and interaction that would just never be possible given the fragile nature of some of the things that you see in museums. With this low-cost light field displays, we open up possible use cases we would never before have considered. This near future film takes a look at 3 to 5 to 8 years out, looking at a wide range of technologies that will have an impact on creativity and collaboration with an impact on the future of work. Join CableLabs to invent the future.
Okay, before I get to the closing question, you wanted to mention something about the intersection of 10G and wireless.
Yes.
Okay.
So at CableLabs, we invest quite a bit, very heavily in wireless. We've also just recently hired a new CRDO. Her name is Miriam Sorend. I would encourage you to come to our booth and learn about not only some of the technologies that we're working on from a fixed standpoint, but also a wireless standpoint, because wireless is going to have to be an enabler of 10G as well. It's about how we can create a converged experience for the end user. And I would encourage you to definitely come over and talk to us over at our booth.
I don't know that I know what a CRDO is.
Oh, Chief Research and Development
Okay,
Officer. I've already been indoctrinated into the acronyms
Yes.
that this industry has. So.
Okay. All right, so closing question, what happens next? Like, what is your wide view for 10G for 2020, and how do we help this room full of 10G ambassadors you have self-selected into this room to help elevate this conversation, at least somewhere around the realm of the buzz of 5G?
Well, I think we keep doing what we're doing, which is, from our standpoint, we keep doing sponsorships and marketing and talking about it. But I think for the people in this room, the vendors and the companies, is really to incorporate 10G into their plans about how they talk about the future of broadband. And I think this conference really demonstrates that we're seeing that already. Yesterday, there was at least a half day of panels about the 10G pathway. I know there was some other discussions going on throughout SCTE. And so this is really all about building that big echo chamber with CableLabs, NCTA, SCTE, CTM, all of the industry organizations, but then also the companies and the vendors that are all part of making it become a reality.
Okay.
And beyond that, actually getting it out into real world applications and how we would actually leverage those. So we're hosting an event, Forefront, in June of 2020, and that's where we want to actually showcase through immersive experiences what are some things that 10G can actually leverage and also enable. So that's going to be a great way, so definitely participate in that. We have several assets from a marketing standpoint. If you want to leverage near future videos or any of the 10G assets, we have quite a bit, so you can find us after the show. We certainly want to help you and figure out how to incorporate these into your marketing and promotional messages as well.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. And Brian, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go into a little bit of a break until 12:45, and then we're going to come back and hear from two gentlemen from Comcast who are up to their eyebrows in 10G. They're going to talk through why and how they're thinking it through and how they're architecting for it in their network. So stick around and come back here at 12:45, and let's thank these two wonderful people. Sure.